Hello and welcome to another episode of my new podcast, The Wash. In we go. Today I'm going to be talking about films, and specifically I'm going to be talking about 5 films again. First up though, let's do some meta stuff, some housekeeping. We've got a new setup today. I'm using my camera, my expensive camera for once, which is good because if I'm going to have it, I better use it as opposed to my phone, which is what I have been using. That means that hopefully the video will be better this episode, and also I'm hoping that the audio will be better as well as a result of some kind of miraculous configuration that I don't know about that might have happened in the background of plugging it into my camera rather than my phone. I don't know, we'll see. You might have actually heard in the last episode the washing machine going off in the background. That was unfortunate, but I guess authenticity of experience and that. The podcast is called The Wash, so it's only right that you hear the wash going on in the background. I think moving forward, some design improvements need to happen as well, because I feel like everything's just a little bit ugly at the moment, myself included maybe. But I feel like I do need to make some changes in terms of the presentation of the podcast with things like images and other bits like that. The video maybe could be edited a bit more cleanly. So yeah, more improvements to come, hopefully. Right then, no more wasting time. Let's get into talking about some movies. First up, I want to talk about Uncut Gems, the film by the Safdie brothers starring Adam Sandler. I was a little bit nervous going into Uncut Gems because I'd heard that it was pretty fast-paced, and the last Adam Sandler film that was fast-paced that I watched was Punch Drunk Love. And I'll be honest, I wasn't a big fan of Punch Drunk Love. It kind of gave me a headache, and it gave my girlfriend a headache as well. I just think it was a bit erratic, and I feel like the music and the sound effects were a little bit high volume. Maybe it's a mistake and I need to go back and watch it again, and it also could have been very subjective to the specific day on which I watched it. You pick up a film and you might be in a bad mood, and that might completely colour your response to the film. That could have happened because I have heard from a lot of people that Punch Drunk Love is a classic. Separately from Punch Drunk Love, I am actually a big fan of the Safdie brothers' work so far. Good Time I loved with Robert Pattinson, and in particular I loved the freneticism of it, so it gave me a good reason to kind of get stuck into this film. You should know though, I'm not a big fan of Adam Sandler. Some of the things, the stories, some of the reports and I guess rumours that I'd heard about him, they ruined my childhood love of Adam Sandler, because I did really like Adam Sandler when I was a kid, you know, based on films like Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy. But I can happily report that Adam Sandler is unreal in Uncut Gems. He really is. The Safdie brothers have tapped into an Adam Sandler that probably most people don't even know exists. And like, I thought that he was that good in this that controversially I would give him the Oscar for Best Actor over Joaquin Phoenix. And I really like Joaquin Phoenix. Julia Fox was great as well. And also, surprisingly, Kevin Garnett was really good in it, which I wasn't expecting going in. And Lakeith Stanfield, I think his name is. I hadn't written that down prior to this, so I hope I've got that right. I'm a big fan of Mr. Stanfield, not Marlowe from The Wire, but hopefully Lakeith. I really loved him in Sorry to Bother You, and I think also he was in Atlanta, Childish Donald Glover's TV show, which I recall him being good in. The film itself is just so intense, so full of life, and it also feels like it might be an accurate representation of New York. I say might be because I've never actually been, unfortunately. And the soundtrack by Daniel Lopatin maybe, it adds to the relentless rhythm of the Safdie's cinematography, to the point where you almost have to remind yourself to breathe every now and then, because if you don't, you'll be in trouble. That's Uncut Gems. It's on Netflix now. It's wonderful, and if you don't watch it, then do. Going back in time now to 2015, to a film that piqued my interest and then slipped my memory. And that film is 71, starring Jack O'Connell of Skins fame. I think he was called Cook in Skins. We all have films like this where you see the trailer, you think, oh yeah, that looks great, and then you just like completely forget that it existed. 71 resurfaced in my mind because I think I heard it mentioned on a podcast recently. Maybe Commode and Mayo, which I'm going to relentlessly refer to over the course of making this podcast, particularly when I'm talking about films. And my guilty pleasure is war films. So I thought, why not give it a go? 71's actually quite a bit more than a war film, though. It's about the conflict between Protestants and Catholics during that era. And in the film, Jack O'Connell plays a soldier who is initially drafted in to keep the peace, I guess, and finds himself on the wrong side of the fence, so to speak, on the wrong side of the divide. The film's action-packed, but it also gives us a taste of some of the deeper conflicts that went on during this time. So obviously you've got the initial main conflict of religion, Protestant and Catholic, but also other conflicts that were going on underneath were things like the conflicts between different members of the IRA and how they wanted to go about their business. You've got the conflicts that went on between families who kind of got tied up in it and almost torn apart by differing beliefs and things like that. And then also the film kind of dives into the conflict between English individuals or people or groups that went over there to help, and then others that actually tried to profit off of the greater conflict. A lot of conflict saying in those few sentences. As with any war and disagreement, there are always going to be individuals and groups, like I said, that look to profit and gain from the disagreement. Maybe also in the film there's a little bit of a commentary on how soldiers are treated, whatever section of the forces they might be in. Maybe in the way that the way they are treated doesn't really reflect the things that they've done for their country and done for us. If you fancy seeing something that's a few years old but still really entertaining, then 71's a really good pick. And I think you can stream it for free, well, not for free technically, but you can stream it on Amazon Prime if you want to. Next up is Monos, and I didn't really know what to expect from Monos, but I'd heard a lot of high praise come from a lot of people that I respect, so I decided to give it a go. And even now, I'm not entirely sure what it was I actually watched. It was wild, it was beautiful, and it was also very moving. And some of the acting was fantastic. I really ended up hating Moises Arias' character, Dog, which is a good thing, because that means that he did a really good job of being dislikable. And the other end of the spectrum would be that I found him silly. I didn't. I found that his character was serious and surprisingly evil, especially for a kid. I think his name being Dog was also particularly relevant because you could probably describe his performance as animalistic, and that's especially the case when you compare it with the humanity of the performance of Sofia Buenaventura, who played Rambo. On a little side note, I actually found out as I was planning this podcast that Moises Arias he played a little kid called Rico in Hannah Montana, which used to be on all the time when I was younger. I think my little brother watched it. I'll blame it on him. I think I was probably a little bit too old to get away with watching Hannah Montana. So he played this really annoying little kid called Rico. And the transformation from that, I thought that was the type of kid that's probably just going to do that one role as a child and then move on. But for him to go on and star in Monos, which is like a completely different experience, is really impressive. So yeah, I was really, really taken aback by his performance and transformation. With Monos, I felt like I never really knew what was coming next, and there was something really fresh about the film. Perhaps because, it was set in Colombia, and it felt almost like every shot was steeped in natural beauty. So you had like the furious, perilous flowing currents of the Amazon River, or in another shot you had this big, vast, desolate mountain range, which I think was in Chingaza National Park where they filmed it. The director Alejandro Landes talked in an interview, I think it was with The Guardian, about how grueling filming this movie was. I think he mentioned something about how, like, at various points, cast and crew seemed to be dropping like flies, and I think he even included himself in that. And there's something about that kind of came through in the movie. Everything just feels kind of high stakes for the characters themselves, but also kind of for the actors as well. And I think that plays a key role in the investment that Monos kind of teases out of you. To sum up, Monos is mental, but Monos is really good. Now, movie number 4 is The Art of Self-Defense. The Art of Self-Defense is a surreal comedy starring Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots. Keep this one short because the others have been quite long. I don't want to make this podcast episode too long as well. I enjoyed this film. To put it simply, I was looking for a comedy and it made me laugh. Jesse Eisenberg played boring, scared, eventually transformed weirdo really well, and the rest of the cast did like decent job as well. One thing that I really liked about the film was that despite being so far removed from reality, it played really well on the bizarre cultism that often accompanies self-defense establishments, and I've experienced that only in small pieces, but they worked with that really well. If you watch this film, it's going to make you giggle. It'll make you laugh. It's different than most comedies, so no reason why not to give it a go. Finally, we've got Bait. Yo, what's on? Nothing much. Getting many? Not enough. Bait is a Cornish film and it's in black and white, and that's hard to sell. Maybe not to movie buffs, but to general consumers like me anyway. It's based in a fishing town where the interests of tourists and locals are starting to clash. And if it wasn't for some very reliable film critics recommending Bait really highly, I probably wouldn't have watched it, to the point where I actually came really close to swapping it out as my 5th film that I needed to watch. I'd watched all 4 and then I needed to choose a 5th, and I've been putting Bait off loads, but I'm really glad that I didn't. First off, don't let the film's lack of colour fool you. I found that what actually turned out to be quite delightful is that because of the lack of colour, textures became all the more apparent. So I spent the film wondering at things like Martin's boots or the fishing net or like the choppy depths of the ocean. For me, the script's absolutely brilliant. It felt like each line was delivered so significantly, and I actually heard that what they did is they filmed without the sound initially, so they then dubbed the script or the voice work over the top of it, and it's like this singular opportunity to focus on the words allowed the actors to like imbue every single word with as much intonation and power as possible. That sounds a bit twatty, but that's what it felt like to me. I absolutely loved the deep contrast between the two classes, the working class and I guess the bourgeoisie, the upper class. The fishing local in Martin and the property swallower in the people that bought his house from him. Edward Rose Martin is absolutely fantastic. I mean, he doesn't say an awful lot, but everything that you need to know is said in his eyes, really, and in his movement. He's so severe and sincere in what he does. So that was really nice to watch because he's not an actor that I've heard of before. And lastly, I absolutely adored how Mark Jenkin, the director, almost gives you time and allows you to just wander through each scene. It's almost like he just opened the door to the story and just let you walk through and follow it at your own pace and your own time. You know, that seems contrary to reality, but that's what it feels like when you're watching this film. To sum up, Bait's fantastic, and if you're looking to pick a film that you perhaps wouldn't usually go for, and you want to pick something that you know is going to be good, I think Bait's just like a brilliant option, and it's a really nice picture based upon our peculiar British culture. I really enjoyed all 5 of those films, and I'll do some more in a couple of weeks or so. Next week I think I'm going to do some books for the podcast, books that I've read so far and books that I recommend, probably a bit of a mix of non-fiction and fiction. That will probably be it. This has been what episode number is it? Episode 5 of my new podcast, The Wash. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Have a nice week. Take care of yourselves.